Hi, all. Welcome back. I wanted to give you a couple of musical examples of what I'm talking about with tipping points. And to do that, I want to look at everybody's favorite time in music, which you can't tell I'm being sarcastic. I am. Um, the mid to late 70s. And I think it's an interesting musical history, and so we'll look at it. It's not particularly my favorite time, but it's certainly interesting. So, what was going on around there? I mean, you can kind of guess, but you probably kind of know. There's popular music was doing interesting things at that time. There was, the mega bands like Led Zeppelin and different things like that that were really popular. But then there were other bands doing other things. And the popular music landscape itself was really dotted with some varied things. The two extremes that I'm going to look at, one of them is this, which is, well, I'll let you listen to some of it and then we'll define it in a minute. So this is Rush, okay? Okay, it goes on. You can look at it more if you want or not. I want you to notice a couple of things that's going on here, though. In particular, with the drummer himself, this is Neil Peart or Pret, depending on who you talk to and what kind of fan they are. I'm not really a fan, but I have friends who are. He's got two bass drums. The opening shot is actually an overhead view of his drum set, and this is early Rush, but he's got toms that go all the way around him almost, well, on one side. Eventually, he's famous for having a drum kit that has uh, literally hundreds of drums. He would sit on a swivel drum stool and just kind of spin and hit things. And depending on, once again, what kind of music you are or music fan you are, he's either considered the most obnoxious drummer ever or the greatest drummer ever. It just kind of depends on where you're at with that. But the thing with him is, with the drumming in particular, is that it's really complicated, and he's doing really interesting, weird beats the whole time. And this kind of music, Rush is an example of it. I'm going to give you one more example in just a second. Is what's called prog rock. Uh, Short for progression rock. These were bands that really took themselves seriously. They were bands that toured with symphony orchestras. They were bands that had literary allusions. They were meant to be the thinking person's music. Whether they are or not, I don't know. Here, let me give you another example of this. This is a band called Yes. They also are a prog band. I want you to notice they have capes and double-headed guitars and lots of stuff going on here. Sci-fi photo or paintings. Here, I'm going to skip ahead. I want you to notice this too. The song is 10 minutes long. Okay, let's... So two-headed guitar actually being used. We've got stacked synthesizers. These guys are taking themselves very seriously. Oh, even the title itself, like I said, it was they use literary allusions. This is obviously an allusion to the science fiction classic Starship Troopers, which was later made into a subpar movie, but whatever. Okay, so all this stuff is actually going on, and to go to a concert was really an experience, and it was meant to be. So on the other side of that, what else was happening around this time was disco. Now, I think disco is really surprisingly interesting. I don't particularly like it, listening to it that much, but I think as a music, it's really interesting. So so we've got prog rock on one side, and we've got disco on the other side. I'm going to play just a little bit of this song, but I want you to notice, we now, especially in the, where we are so far removed from disco, it's easy to look back on that and kind of look at it as jokey. And I think some disco musicians were really having fun. But many of them took themselves very seriously. Now we see these men wearing matching suits and think it's a little campy and kind of funny. I think in a way they were probably taking themselves very seriously. You'll notice that they have matching dance moves and different things like that. So let's listen to a little bit of this and then we'll actually talk about what the song's talking about. So I apologize for the bad quality of the video, but that's YouTube, so. Okay, I'm going to pause it there. But so this song, I think, once again, is deceptively fun. If you listen to the lyrics of what's actually happening here, it's referring to something that actually occurred. There was a fire that took place in and I don't know the city, I should have looked this up, but a fire took place in a city, and it was on the black side of town, and many people there afterwards thought that, well, depending on who you talk to, I've read different accounts of different things, but like firemen went there and watched it burn down, watched this building burn down with people in it and different things like that, and so this song is actually a political statement. You wouldn't know that from listening to it, but it's a political statement. Now, what I think both prog rock and disco have in common is that they're both really surprisingly complicated. Okay, disco has these really progressive bass beats that were meant to be danced to and different things like that, but they also have they often toured with horns. This song is no exception. It has a horn section in it. So it was really about being kind of complicated. Both of these music types were kind of complicated. And I think something really interesting happened at the end of the 70s that maybe people didn't see it coming. I don't know. Maybe people did. I don't know. But what happened is that really seriousness, the dressing up for your concerts, political or literary allusions, touring with horns, all of that, the bottom kind of fell out of it. And what happened was, in the late 70s, punk came out. Okay, and so I'm going to play you briefly. I should just play you the whole song, because it's only 3 minutes long, but I'm not going to because some of you would hate it, and that's fine. This is probably my favorite punk band, Gang of Four. They're a British punk band. But listen to this song, and then we'll talk about it for just a second. It has about a minute guitar feed solo to begin this. I'll skip forward. Okay, just a little bit further. He starts with a cough. I hope you noticed that. I don't know if you caught that, but the chorus of that is one of my favorite lines in all of pop music. It's, "Love will get you like a case of anthrax, and that's just something I don't want to catch." So yeah, I mean, so the Gang of Four, the other bands that you've probably heard of for punk include the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and some others, but basically, they didn't take themselves serious for the most part, although Gang of Four is actually a reference to a big political movement. I'll let you look it up yourself. But, it was more about... it wasn't certainly about being good musicians. There's a story about the Ramones that may or may not be true, but the legend about them, which is probably more important than actually being true or not, is that the same week they had their first gig with their guitarist, it was the same week that he actually touched a guitar, and so he didn't even know how to play, and they were playing these big gigs. And so they're also taking themselves less serious there. This is, I think punk music is kind of fun. Some of it is not fun, but it's meant to be taken less serious, I think, than, certainly prog rock and most of disco as well. And so all of this, touring with a Philharmonic is ridiculous to most punk musicians at this time, and so yeah, that was what's going on. I want to play you briefly another punk band, although they're not necessarily always considered punk. Although I think they kind of embrace some of the punk ideals. Certainly, this band is having a lot of fun. This is Talking Heads. Their first album came out in 1977, which works really well with the punk movement. Some other people would call this a different kind of music, but like I said, I think it adheres to some of the punk ideals. And so this is them.
I can't seem to face up to the facts. I'm too so nervous and I can't relax. I can't sleep cause my bed's on fire. Don't touch me, I'm a real live wire. Psycho killer, guess to say. Better run, 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 run away.
Okay, that's enough. Yeah, so the Talking Heads, I think the part of the punk that they really embrace is this carefree attitude. Their second album was actually called more shoot, more songs about buildings and food. And so they're doing some really interesting stuff. Now, with that said, some punk did take themselves very seriously, especially later coming up into the '80s. There were some very politically charged bands and different things that were going on. But some of this early punk was kind of, I think, in a lot of ways, a reaction to prog rock and disco. And so why I'm showing you this is because I think if you look at it, this is a big bump in the history of music, the actual origin of a music. And so, if we're looking at the subgenre of rock, then we're looking at the genre of rock and then the subgenre of punk, we could kind of speculate about what actually happened. Interestingly, to me anyway, the exact same thing happened at the end of the '80s. Music was almost entirely synthesized. We had a lot of electronic drums and a lot of different things like that. And what happened? Grunge happened. We've got the Pixies and we've got Nirvana performing in the mid to late '80s. Soundgarden and some other ones were around as well. And they basically, it was a reaction to this hyper electronicized music. And so, yeah, I mean, what I want you to do is, whatever community you're actually interested in, I want you to try and look at it and try and find those bumps. And if you do, start to speculate about why. Start to look for viruses that would contribute to that kind of change that did take place. And if you do it well, you'll probably have a tipping point paper on your hands. So that's it. Thank you.